pleasure. Billabong is such a forward-thinking school, so it's a pleasure to welcome Veer, who's a dear friend to Billabong. Mr. Veer Singh Anand is the director of the University of St. Andrews Global India office. He heads the university's strategy in the region and is responsible for the undergraduate and postgraduate market growth development, working closely with schools, universities, educational and government bodies. Veer is always there, just a phone call away. You just need to pick up your phone and he's there to help any counselor. And I have been lucky to work alongside with him. Along with his work in India, Veer is also responsible for the Middle East Indonesia territory for St. Andrews. He's had a brief stint in consulting in London prior to his current profile. Mr. Anand himself is a graduate of St. Andrews, something that he wears proudly, on his sleeves and always talks about that. He graduated with honors in management, is a global ambassador for the Scottish Scot Registry, a member of the board of advisors for the GB magazine, a London-based media firm specializing in international student-led content. So it's a pleasure to welcome you here, Veer, and on behalf of Preeti Ma'am and Billabong. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to. I've been in part of your sessions before, and I have thoroughly enjoyed myself and always learned something. I've always picked a leaf from your pages. So that's something I look forward to today. Just for the house, everybody requests everybody to please mute their microphones so that we can completely immerse ourselves in the experience that Veer is going to give us and understand what a Ucas statement looks like. If you have any questions, we'd request you to put in the chat box. Veer, would you like to wait till the end of the session before we take questions? That's how you typically work, but I just thought I'll ask you once. Would that be all right?
I think that's the best. The best way to do it. But it's going to be very tough for me to live up to that introduction, Shikha. It's you've put me in a very tough spot, but it's great to be here, and always good to work with students and the likes of yourself and Preeti. So, thank you for having me.
Great, looking forward. And I'm going to hand the floor over to you. If we can just give the rights to Veer to switch on his PPT, Habiba, if we can do that, then we can move forward.
Yeah.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes. It's just popping up. Yes.
Perfect. This is sometimes what happens with technology, unfortunately, is you never know what's happening. So yeah, again, just to repeat what Mrs. Shikha just said is let's wait till the end for questions. I will save some time for you guys to ask me some questions. I'd love it if you ask me questions as well. But just because I can't really see you guys when I'm sharing the screen, probably easiest if you just waited for the end. So again, thank you for having me. It's great to see a lot of you here. I think first and foremost, I hope everyone's safe and your families are safe as well. It's a difficult time, but we stay together and keep fighting, I guess. So just to add a little bit about me, apart from the formal introduction, I think what I'm very proud of is, like Mrs. Shikha mentioned again, is that I'm an alum of St. Andrews. So just a little bit about me. I studied in Delhi. I was at the Sri Ram School in Delhi. That's where I did my IB diploma from. Until the 10th grade, I was part of the ISC board, ICSE, and so I know the Indian system as a student myself. I then did my undergraduate bachelor's degree at St. Andrews in management, post which I was briefly in London. I was consulting for a boutique firm. We did marketing analytics, and post that I rejoined the university, this time with the admissions office. And then we wanted to set up an India office so that we could work with you guys better and help you out and support our alumni and their careers and partnerships and so on. So it made sense to have a base in India, and that's what I now head. So just to give you that context, because I can answer all sorts of questions, about applying to the UK, where I may have applied, why I went to St. Andrews, things like that. So I've kept my email on the slide there. Hopefully you've had a chance to make a note of it, but I'll be happy to take all sorts of questions, whether it's about St. Andrews or not. Always happy to answer questions. So very quickly, I'm going to be covering a few topics today in the limited time that we have, starting off with just giving you an introduction into the Ucas. and that's going to lend itself well to the next bit of the topic. The topic being covered will be about how to apply. So a lot of you might be, in the 12th grade, in the 11th grade, you're thinking about applying to various universities around the world. So this will focus on the UK application system. And a big part of the UK application system is the personal statement. So I'll be spending a lot of time about that to talk about the do's and don'ts about what we as a top 2 or 3 ranked university in the UK look at from our applicants, and what really stands out to us. And being one of the top 4 or 5 most competitive in the UK, I think that gives you a good understanding of what other top universities will also look for. Then a little bit about what you need to do after you apply, some terms you need to be aware of, and then I'll take the liberty of at the end talking a little bit about St. Andrews, if that's okay with everyone. So quickly and swiftly moving on. So what is the Ucas? We hear the Ucas a lot, and whenever we talk about applying to the UK, the Ucas stands out. So the Ucas in very simple terms is an application portal through which most undergraduates would apply to the UK. It's not just an application portal, it also has a lot of information in it, and I can do this exercise once we finish if we have time, which is think about a scenario of you wanting to study maybe a combination of psychology and management. Now if I tell you, okay, tell me 100 universities in the UK that have this combination available, you'll spend months to just find those combinations. You'll have to go through the individual websites, go through the course catalog, who offers this combination, who doesn't. You can simply go onto the Ucas site, there's a course search, put down your subjects, and it'll give you a list of all the universities that have that combination. So really important to understand that the Ucas is not just an admissions portal, it's a very useful resource when it comes to courses, when it comes to universities, what they're looking at, and this is obviously your way of tracking your application as well. So legally, all the university application information has to go through the Ucas because that's how you've applied. And so updates in terms of whether you've got your offer, you haven't got it, what your scores, your conditional scores might be, everything will be updated through the Ucas. Also, in terms of writing your personal statements, there's a lot of worksheets and good videos that they have that'll help you along the way as well. So I did mention the Ucas. It's also important for me to mention that in the UK, and every university is different, but they do have some other ways of applying as well. I would say, more than 90% of our applications come through the Ucas, but there are some universities, so we're part of the 24, 25 universities in the UK that also are on the Common App. So some students who might just want to apply to, a few universities might think, I've already applied through the Common App, let me just put one more option, and you can do that. But make sure that your other universities in the UK are also on the Common App. And in very, very few cases, you have a direct application through the UK university's website, but very few universities have it. And I'll come back to why the Ucas actually makes the most sense in terms of cost and just ease of applying. So important to note, you can't use a mix of all the 3 methods. You have to pick one method. So just telling you because, it's important that you have all the information, but in 99% of the cases, you will be using the Ucas, and which is why we're here today. Ucas.com is your resource. Very important to know that you can only make one application in a cycle. So you can't put in multiple applications. So make sure that when you put your application in, you're confident in it, you've done your research, you've done your work, and then you put in your application. So unlike other ways of applying, very, very simple process, 4 main components: your personal details, your qualifications, that means your grades, which normally would be predicted. In some cases, you might have some scores as well. 1 reference, again, important distinction from other methods of applying to other countries. It's just 1 reference and 1 personal statement. So there are no multiple essays which are subjective in nature. It's quite an objective piece of work that you will submit, which is very academic in nature. So 4 easy components. And if we take the personal information out, you're largely just talking about the personal statement as what you have to prove yourself to the university. Coming back to the question that I asked earlier, which is the application fee is £20 if you're applying for just one course, and it's about £26 if you're applying for multiple courses. So it obviously makes sense to apply for multiple courses. You put in one application and then the Ucas does the job for you. It sends your application out to all your 5 choices. So keep a look at that. The cost does change from year to year. So I'm just giving you an estimate from last year's application fee. What are the steps in the Ucas? Okay, so you start off with obviously creating your login, putting down your email. Make sure that you put down an email that you check. Data privacy laws in the UK are very, very strict. We can only communicate with you through the methods that you have indicated are the right ways to communicate with you. So your email needs to be correct. Make sure that you're not giving your parents' email if they're not checking it or their inbox is very busy, because then you'll miss out on key information that we might need. Something very interesting, and I always love talking to Indian parents about this, but as far as the data privacy laws in the UK are concerned, our contract, so to say, is with the student. It's not with the parent. So unless you nominate and very clearly give access to us to talk to your parents, we won't be able to do that. So when you are registering, there will be an option where you can give nominated access. If you do want your parents to be part of the process, then you must give them nominated access. Otherwise, we can only have limited information sharing with them. The most important is the buzzword. So when you log in and you create your Ucas account, it'll ask for a buzzword. This is very important. It's basically a phrase or some sort of a code that will connect you with the school. So the school has a designated buzzword. They'll pass that on to you. You put that in and that connects the two together. Why that's important is because the reference, your grades that need to be uploaded by the school need to be done in the portal as well. So the buzzword connects the two together. So you upload your bit on the Ucas, your school does it through the buzzword on their side, and then the application obviously is completed. So that's your basic registering process. Those are it's quite simple. It doesn't ask for a lot of information, just basic information that we need. Then of course, course selection, very, very important. Do your research. I did a session with just a few days back, which was actually a counselor session, but really important to understand the different types of courses that you have. For example, I did business management, but people don't realize business management might have subtle differences to, let's say, a BCom, bachelor's in commerce, which might be slightly different to business studies. So the approach to the subject, even though it might seem very similar, can be different. So very important that you do your research. The first step to applying to the UK is knowing what you want to apply for. So do your research. Something might be a BA, a BSc. In Scotland, we have an MA, which is, equal to a BA. So don't get confused there. Very important that you do your research. So you pick your courses in the next step after you've done your research, and you can pick up to 5 courses. And that's the maximum that you can do in the UK and the UCAS. Then, of course, you come on to your grades. You submit your predicted grades, as I mentioned, or in some cases, if you have achieved grades, you can do that as well. If at all you find that your qualifications aren't listed on the portal, there's a box where you'll find other, and you can put your qualifications there. If it is something that the university isn't familiar with, they'll get back to you. But the amount of work that UK universities today do in India, it's very rare that you'll have that scenario. But you can use the other box. Then, of course, while we're here, the personal statement, your teacher reference, and then you submit your application after you pay your fee. So just to give you a rough guideline into what the steps are like, so you have a clear picture and start to understand why the personal statement is as important as it is. So we move on, and if we go back to the slide here on how to apply, like I said, remove the personal details, and actually one out of the 3 components that you have in your control. The reference really isn't in your control. Your qualifications you've already achieved. Personal statement is 1/3 of your application. So it is very, very important. This is your only way really to make yourself stand out and prove that you are the right fit for this particular course to the university. So it's very important that you spend time on it, important that you
Veer,
iron out
I'm
all the
so sorry.
mistakes.
I'm cutting you in. I'm
No problem,
disturbing you
go
in the
ahead.
middle of your presentation. Can you stop annotations from your end? They've made you the host, so only you can do it from your end.
That I can do what?
You will have to stop the annotation
Where?
on the screen. If you go up, there is the option of annotations, and if you can just select stop annotations. If you can't, that's okay. Let's just go ahead. It's perfectly fine.
Yes, I shall just stop it if I can.
Thanks. Apologies for the same.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out where the annotations are. Hmm. Does that work now?
You would only know, Veer, so I'm trusting you when you say it's not working.
I have turned it off.
Great, that should work, Veer. That should work. Right.
Yeah. Okay, hopefully it does. I think I have managed to disable it. Do you want to double check? Should I stop sharing my screen and you want to
No, Veer, I
double
think
check
we're good
that?
to go. Carry on, carry on.
Okay. Okay, hopefully that's done. I have disabled it. Thanks for that, Chika. I didn't realize it was actually running. But so very quickly, what is a personal statement, right? So some questions that we get commonly is who reads it? You know, there's this big misconception that I think it is still running. Just okay, I'll carry on, Shikha, but if there is something troubling, just stop me again. We
Great,
can just
I'll
stop
do that.
sharing.
Don't worry. Carry on.
Okay, so let me go back a step because I think I might have confused people while stopping. So common questions: who reads it and what they're looking for. So I think there's this misconception sometimes that you know it's just some software that's reading your application. It's not the case. You know, I can tell you categorically, we have an entire team that reads every bit of your application. So, you know, where do you start? What should you include? What are the things to avoid? You know, and I think that things to avoid is actually something quite interesting because you know there's no one way to write a good personal statement, but there are certainly some patterns that you'll find when it comes to things that you don't want to say in your personal statement. So I'm going to be covering parts of some of these questions as well. So what are we looking for? As always, clear structure. Okay, we don't want big paragraphs. You know, make sure that you've structured your personal statement. Right grammar. If you're using you know the English way of spelling words, stick to that. Check your spellings. Don't make spelling mistakes. And express yourself in a clear manner. Don't make your sentences very large. Keep it precise. Keep it to the point. Very important, commitment to the subject. We're not writing an essay about you, about your personality. We're writing an essay about why this subject is important to you. So the subject should be at the heart of the essay. It should be academically focused. So it's not a CV where you're trying to, you know, put down every single achievement that you've got. About 75% of your personal statement should be about the subject and your passion towards the subject. And about 25 can be, you know, extracurriculars, transferable skills that you might have learned and so on. So something to bear in mind that we don't expect you to know everything about the subject. You're in school, you're still learning. We want to know that you want to learn about this subject. So don't at any point feel that you expected to know everything. It's okay to indicate that this is what you want to learn more about. This is a particular aspect of this subject that you want to learn more about. And that's completely fine as well. And the more personal experiences you use, the better it is, because that just makes it much more relatable and it makes it much more real for the reader as well. So what should you include? as I mentioned, and I've been through this, so I won't spend too much time on this, but engage with the subject, understand what you're applying for. Every university will publish, the course catalog, where you'll know the details about what a particular course is about, who's teaching it, the topics. For example, I'll give you an example that we get in psychology, where students, really probably just look at the rankings, or look at, how good the particular university is for psychology. And what they forget to check is the individual strengths of the university in particular subjects within psychology. So we get applications talking about sports psychology. And while we have a great psychology department, we don't actually specialize in sports psychology. So instantly that person is fighting a lost cause, because we know that this person really hasn't researched us in detail. So motivation for choosing a subject. Why do you want to do this subject? Is there a subject area? For example, I did management. I was very interested in the financial aspect. I was interested in entrepreneurship. I was interested in brand building. So what within the subject interests you? How have you developed that interest? Has it come from studying the subject? Has it come from maybe doing courses online? Has it come from other ways that you might want to showcase? Then we move on to your extracurricular activities. So we want to know what you're going to be like outside the classroom. How are you going to engage with other students? Are you going to take part in societies and clubs? And so we want to know about that. But again, remember, this is in your 25 to 30%, not in the bulk of your essay. So what I try and tell students, especially when they're starting to write it out, it can be a little overwhelming when you first start out to write this piece of work. And what I would suggest is, think of it as just make bullet points. Just list everything that you feel you've done, whether it be subjects, internships, work shadowing, books you've read, people you've spoken to, conferences, everything that you feel is important for you to have in your personal statement. You then have a good starting point to then filter out and say, okay, this is a point that's really relevant. This is another point I can put as a second argument to make sure that I'm showcasing why I'm interested in this. That's what I do. I find bullet points very useful. But equally, some of my colleagues, what they like to say, and that's what I put down here, is think about it as writing a short story about yourself. This is a history about me and my interest in XYZ subject. And so when you start to do this, you start identifying 2 or 3 very good examples that you can showcase your interest in the subject. You then talk about some of your hobbies and other things that you're interested in. Lastly, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, talk to your seniors who might be at university. And what you want to ask them after writing this piece of work is the subject standing out? And if the subject is standing out, then you know that you're already on the right track. So use all the resources available. Make sure that you're writing a good piece of work, which is very clean in its grammar and its approach, and it is showcasing you. I should see you through that piece of work. Now, before I talk about this slide, I want to say there's no right or wrong way of writing a personal statement. Why I've put this slide here is because this is a good step 1 as a draft 1 to your personal statement. You may want to use it, you may not, but this seems to help people understand how to structure a personal statement. Equally, I've read essays which have been brilliant, which have just contrast 2 or 3 different authors and their approach to a particular subject. That's a brilliant essay as well. It doesn't use this structure, but just for the sake of helping you guys out and in creating a good structure for yourself, this is something that people have found useful. Start off with an introduction. Right at the beginning, you want to tell us what you're applying for and why. So don't leave it till the end. Don't keep us guessing. Of course, since the same essay is going to 5 universities, don't mention the exact subject, but the larger subject area. You're interested in management, you're interested in economics. Important to let the reader know right away, this is what I'm applying for and this is why I'm applying for the subject. You then move on to your academic interest to talk in depth about what led to this interest in the subject. What are the subcategories that you like that I spoke about? Why do you want to take it further? Do you have any career ambitions where you'll use this, or simply do you want to learn more after doing some work? Now, I always like giving examples. So let's say someone's applying for economics, has done an internship with a consulting firm, and you write, I worked with XYZ Consulting, where I analyzed reports, and I did this internship for 3 months. Okay, that's one way of saying it. Another student who's maybe done a similar internship says, my internship with XYZ was related to market intelligence. I worked on a project with 2 clients in the field of healthcare, and that led to a 5% increase in their marketing activities. Okay, so I'm not going to open this out because we're taking questions later, but clearly the second one is much stronger. It gives me an indication that you weren't just doing this internship and getting coffee for your colleagues. It is, you've done something real, you've impacted what you were doing. And further than that, the best student will actually take that further and then talk about, okay, I did this internship, it helped me understand marketing in greater depth, and it helped me contrast topics that I read in XYZ book where he spoke about marketing in this way, and I now want to learn more about it at university. Okay, so that takes it again a step further, and it gives you that academic background as well as using your personal experiences. So very important to understand it's not just what you did, but we want to hear about you as well. Then I move into what I call super curricular activities. So this is something where I say is activities that are directly related to the course you're applying for. And I'll give you some examples in the next slide about how the same activity for two different people might actually come in either of the two categories here. So just keep that in mind. But these are directly related to the subject that you're applying for. On the other hand, you have your extracurricular activities, which are about like I said, transferable skills, which are about your sports and other hobbies and music, so on, that you can talk about, and it helps us understand you as a person. Lastly, of course, conclude well, sum up what you're trying to say, and again, your interest in the subject to finish off your essay. And as you can see, the first three components, which are directly related to your subject, should be about 70%, and then your extracurricular activities might be 25 to 30% of your application. So this is again just a starting point, but it's a good visual tool to maybe start to understand what this personal statement is all about. So again, some checklist points for you guys. Are you demonstrating your interest? Does it fall in line with what you want to do? Are you understanding what you're applying for? Go back to that example about sports psychology. So do your research. Don't give just claims. I've read enough essays about people talking about I want to change the world and so on and so forth. Great, we love that ambition, but beyond that, it's not really adding to your essay. Going back again, something that I find a lot of particularly Indian students talk about is actually talk about what their parents have done and their grandparents have done, and so on and so forth. And if that's relevant to your interest and how that led to your interest, fine, you can use it to a certain extent, but don't otherwise start mentioning these things because it doesn't add value to what you're trying to say. Your personal statement is about 47 lines or 4,000 characters. So it's only about 1.5 A4 sheets of paper. So you really only have space to pick out 3 or 4 relevant examples. Don't try and fit everything in and talk about it in that amount of time. Some examples for you. Relevant school activities, of course, Model United Nations is a common one. You have community work, you'll have school trips, you have activities in your school, clubs in your school that you can probably use for that. You might have organized maybe a sporting event, participated in, some quiz programs and things like that. Of course, going back to what I mentioned about super curricular activities, let's say MUN, for example, you're talking about, let's say you're applying for politics or economics, then MUN might be a super curricular activity for you. Whereas if you're applying for physics or chemistry, then MUN might be a way of showcasing that you know how to speak, research, and other transferable skills. So the same activity, depending on the subject that you're applying for, could differ. So what are transferable skills? It's the same terms you come across even when you'll be applying for jobs later. Commitment, engagement, independent work, teamwork, communication, collaborative skills, so these are sort of skills that you learn through various programs and activities. So important to do that. Something important also to make your personal statement more academic is what we look for is subscriptions, projects, research you've done, journal articles that you've read, gone beyond your school curriculum. Those are also important things that you can look at. Favorite part of the personal statement presentation for me is things to avoid. Okay, so the first thing I've mentioned, don't come across as not knowing what you're applying for. That's the biggest mistake that you can commit. Second thing, commit to your course. So if you're talking about management, talk about management. Don't mention physics or computer science. It's great that you might have some experience there, but what you're applying for is what you need to be committed to. This sounds funny, but don't mention the name of any institution. You might want to come to St. Andrews, but don't mention that the program at St. Andrews is something that I want to do because it'll help me in my career. Bad example there, but again, what's going to happen is you're not going to impress your other 4 universities. So very important that, again, keep it general. If you're talking about a summer program or a course that you've done, okay, it's fine to mention the university or the professor, but otherwise don't in any way try and indicate that one university is a preference over the other, because remember, the Ucas sends the same essay to all your choices. If you are applying for a joint application, which is difficult sometimes, you must make sure that you're not ignoring one of the 2 subjects. So the way the joint application will work in most universities, and I can give you the example from ours, is both faculties will have to approve it. So if you spend more time on one than the other, then it is likely that we're going to raise a question over why the joint program. And something that students I find challenging as well is when you're applying for different types of programs to different universities. So if you're applying for a politics and economics to one compared to, let's say, international relations and policy making in the other, so it's very difficult then to find the best way to write your personal statement. So the easiest answer is obviously look for courses that have common ground, and if not, and you're talking about similar subjects, go through the course catalog, find common themes so that your essay will be relevant to everywhere that you're applying for. Lastly, don't make unsubstantiated claims. So don't make claims that we know will be false. Trust me, when you read 5 or 6 personal statements, you know exactly what you're looking for and who's written it and who hasn't. So make sure that you write it. It's better for you to do that than to try and make yourself seem as something else. And you can talk to your counselors about this. Once you read 5 or 10 applications, it's very easy to know what the student is trying to do there. Now, the first one, the point here is so relevant to me, and I often have to control myself even today, is just remember, you might have a great sense of humor, but the person reading might not. And this is important, especially for the likes of myself who love to have a laugh, is remember the context. You're applying to a university in the UK. The person reading your essay might be from the UK, might be from the US, might be from someone else. If they don't understand the context from which you're coming, that can be a big problem for you. Given you only have limited space, it's okay to be yourself, to write about things in a light way, but try and stay away from stories and jokes and things like that. It really won't help your cause, at least in this piece of work. Don't repeat material. This is something I find students do a lot. We get your grades. So we will look at your grades normally from the 9th or 10th onwards. So don't repeat what you're studying, how much you got, your subject choices, because we get that in any case. So it's better that you utilize that information and that space to maybe showcase another example rather than repeat material that we're already getting. Equally, if you have left it off at, let's say, instead of 47 lines, 45 lines, it's better to have a nice compact piece of work. Don't just try and fill up the space, but equally, obviously, don't just write 20 lines. But if you do have a little bit space extra, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like I said, it's not a CV. Don't list. And lastly, a lot of these things to avoid, you can take care of if you don't rush your application. I find a lot of students, much like yourself, I'd applied to the US as well. I'd applied to the UK. I'd applied to universities in India. And, there's just because we know that the Ucas process is maybe easier to fill in compared to others, we leave it till the end. Don't do that, So you remember it is 5 universities that this essay is going to. Spend time on it, get it out of the way early, maybe do it in the summer, um, and don't rush it. Give it time, let teachers read it, let your counselor read it, let your parents read it. Um, and that's how you can iron out a lot of the mistakes that I've said. So some tips for you: have a good spread of choices. This isn't really my job as a university representative here, someone who works for a university. This is something your counselor can consider and advise you. But the UCAS is a great system. It offers you 5 choices. If you can iron out your choices, the UK is very clear in terms of what grades we expect and what we require. So you'll know where you fit in, what kind of colleges you should apply to. Maybe go for 2 or 3 of the top choice. Maybe keep a few backups. So try and have a good spread of your choices. Like I said before, apply to similar subjects. Doesn't have to be the same, but it just makes your job easier when it comes to writing your personal statement. Take a look at your entrance requirements. Some universities accept additional testing. So for example, at St. Andrews, if someone sends in the SATs or the ACTs, or your AP, something that you might have done to enhance your knowledge, we will take a look at it. It's not compulsory, but we would accept it. Some universities don't. So make sure that you know what you can and what you should not be submitting to particular universities. There's a lot of engagement that universities today have with students. Reach out to them. They'll be able to help you with that. And again, I cannot repeat this enough. Research why you're applying for a particular course and what the course is about. So this is an example, and a particularly bad one, I should say. But here you can see some highlighted bits. So this is a student who applied for chemistry or chemical engineering. Again, wrote about Strathclyde, which is a Scottish university. And again, so instantly when I'm reading it, suddenly that hits me over there that this guy is keen to go to a particular university. Mentions it again. Then again, talks about chemical engineering or chemistry, which is a big no. I said, keep it general, because we don't have chemical engineering. So again, instantly, I might even just stop there, because I'm thinking this student really doesn't know what they're doing. Then again, goes on to talk about the subjects that you're doing. Something I mentioned that, you can avoid. We will get your grades separately. So wasting space there. And lastly, while I said don't fill up for the sake of filling up your 47 lines, but again, here I can just look at it and say, that this person really probably doesn't have much more to say, because he's just written 2 paragraphs. So a very extreme bad example. We don't get too many of these, luckily. But again, just to show you that some stuff that I'm talking about is not alien. These things do happen. So be aware that don't fall into the trap of some of these mistakes. I'm in the last few slides when it comes to the personal statement and UCAS. So hang in there. There's some important information. Like I mentioned before, you can apply to up to 5 courses. Okay, so there's no order of preference. In fact, we won't even be able to see where else you've applied. So there's no preference. Put down your choices. Also remember that it's not just 5 universities. It could be you apply to 2 courses in the same university. Just be aware that this then takes up 2 out of the 5 choices. So you can only apply to 3 more, if that might be the case. So it's not necessary that it needs to be 5 universities. It's 5 courses is what actually the UCAS is looking at. If you're applying for medicine, dentistry, anything related to medical sciences, one, remember you have an early deadline. It's 15th October, much like Oxford and Cambridge. And 2, you can only apply to a maximum of 4 courses in this subject. You will need to take 1 choice, which will be outside of the medical field. This is because medicine, dentistry, and veterinary sciences, they often have an interview process. It's very competitive. And, the UCAS probably is giving you guys an option to have a little buffer for yourself, just in case you're not successful in your interviews, then you can apply to maybe a course which is biotechnology or biology, might still be related to, your interest, but not in the field that's necessarily to medicine. If you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, remember you can only apply to one of the two. Again, 15th October in the year prior to when you want to start is the deadline. Again, because they have interviews and additional tests that you might have to do for them. So you can only apply to one of the two. You can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge. It's either of the two. Lastly, if you are looking at deferred entry, you can indicate this on your Ucas application. What a deferred entry essentially means is that you have put in your application today, but you don't start in the year that you're applying for. You take a year off for whatever reason and you come in after that, but you don't need to reapply. The university saves the seat for you. Make sure you check with your universities if they have that option. Not every university allows for it. So if you are looking at that, let me give you some examples of people who do apply for deferred entry. We get students from Singapore, for example, who need to do military service. So they apply, they then do the year of military service, and then they join. If you have any particular unique conditions that you might want to tell us about, whether it's medical, financial, that's impacting you, but you're confident that you can come the year after that, you can put in. It's normally looked at on a case-by-case basis at the universities that accept it. So again, because it's something that you will see on the Ucas, I wanted to make sure that you know what that meant. Some deadlines for 2021 entry, of course, this will be updated for 2022, but they tend to be very similar year on year. If you're applying through the Common App, like I said, it is something 2025 universities do accept. 1st May of, if you're starting in September 2021, then 1st May is the deadline. For Ucas and direct applications, technically, the deadline is about 30th June, but 15th January is the deadline for UK students. So for international students, it's a rolling admissions process. I urge you to apply as early as possible. Don't wait, leave it late. Most universities will fill up their seats prior to that. And because it's a rolling process, we read applications, we like a student, we make an offer. So obviously, the later you leave it, the less space we might have available, and it gets very competitive to you. So while 15 January might be the UK deadline, my suggestion is use that as an international deadline as well to be most competitive. Medicine and Oxford, like I said, October 15th, the year before you want to start, is your deadline. And September 13th is when we start our program. But most UK universities actually start in October. So just to give you a deadline schedule for dates that are used in the UK. So again, I've mentioned that for anyone who is, I know in India we have people who might be citizens of other countries. If you're a UK Scottish citizen, you might want to make sure that you know the 15th October and 15th Jan deadline over there. Now, interestingly, that bit is done. Your universities love you, and now it's about what do you do next. Okay, track the portal. Like I said, the Ucas updates come through the portal. There's two outcomes, obviously, if you're successful or you're unsuccessful. Let's start off with, the happy scenario that you get all your offers. Your offers are likely to be conditional or unconditional. Okay, so a conditional offer basically means based on your predicted grades and other submissions, we like what you've done, and we say we'll give you an offer as long as you meet a percentage in your final board exams. So we've promised you a place as long as you meet this offer. You meet that offer, send your grades to us at the end of your board exams or your final exams, whatever it is in your case, and we will make your conditional offer unconditional. In some cases, when we have a lot of information already available, you might have already given some exams. Very rarely, but it does happen in the UK, is that we can make unconditional offers as well, which means that you've pretty much got your place. If there is some formalities that we need to do, you can do that, but largely you've got your place. We don't really need much more from you. The other side is obviously if you're unsuccessful, that's can be a scenario, especially at top places. If you are unsuccessful in all your 5 choices, then the Ucas gives you an extra choice. so that you can then still apply to some UK universities, and maybe be more realistic in your approach. But likely it is likely that you'll get at least a few offers, if not all five, if you make a smart choice and you're aware of where and how you're applying to a particular university. So extra choices available. Now, once you've got your choices, what do? You have to make a firm choice and an insurance choice. So from 5 choices, you come down to 2. Your other 3, if you have got all 5 offers, or how many ever you've got, will be rejected automatically, and you're left with 2 choices. A firm choice is your first choice, is where you want to go, and as long as you meet your condition, you will go there. Your insurance choice is meant to be a safety net for just in case you miss your condition for your firm offer. Let's say you were predicted a 90, your university said, look, get 90 in your final exams and we'll give you your place, and you ended up with an 85. Okay, so you're not meeting the condition, the university rejects you, you then go to your insurance choice. So be very careful. Don't make the mistake of not understanding these 2 terms, and know the difference. So first choice should be where you want to go. Insurance, ideally, therefore, by definition, should normally be slightly lower than what your firm choice is. What you don't want to do is, have your firm choice as a 90% condition and your insurance choice as a 95% condition. Because if you end up missing your firm choice, you're missing your insurance as well. And then you're in a situation where you won't have, your places guaranteed. And then you'll have to maybe look at clearing and other things, which I'll talk about. But that's not a good scenario to be in. So an example here, for the sake of ease, look at it as scenarios 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, representing 5 different universities. Brilliant student, you've got all 5 of your offers, but each offer has a different condition. So one is 90% overall percentage, let's say in the CBSE, but a 90 and above in math. Second one 90, third one 85, and so on. So there's no right or wrong option, but what you don't want to do is maybe have option 3 as a firm choice and then option 1 as an insurance, because if you miss your firm, you're missing your insurance as well. Equally, while number 1 and 2 might be the 2 highest ranked universities, having both as your firm and insurance might not make sense, because again, you're in that scenario where you're putting yourself in a little bit of a difficult scenario. So the logical option would be that you look at either 1 or 2 as your firm choice, if those are where you want to go, and then something which has a slightly lower condition as your insurance, so that you're keeping that backup as well. But equally, for some of you, the 4th choice might actually be your firm choice, in which case go for that. But just to give you a representation of the kind of situation you might find yourself in if you are lucky to get all 5 of your decisions. I mentioned clearing. So clearing is basically a way where students who, let's say, miss their conditions for their firm and insurance, and you don't have an offer from a university by the 30th of June, you apply basically for this after the 30th of June, and you're not confirmed anywhere, and your exams are already published. So some universities, and this obviously, isn't likely that a lot of the top ones, for example, we don't enter clearing at all, similar with Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, but some very, very good universities, even in the top 10 of the rankings, might actually go into clearing and say, look, we have some spaces available, and we don't want students to lose out the opportunity. They might not lower their grades, but they'll open it out again where you can reapply as part of the clearing process. So this is obviously an option if you're not holding an offer, and is not something I would encourage you to look into. But just in case you find yourself in that scenario, still know that the options are there for you. I spoke about different application processes. So I mentioned that about 25 Common App members in the UK. It's very similar for us. We don't look at your general essay really. We would look at, we'd ask for a supplement essay, which is basically like the personal statement, and we'd make sure that we don't disadvantage anyone who's applying from one way to the other. But some differences between applying through the Ucas or the Common App. Now I've spoken for a good 20-25 minutes, if not more, Um, I'm going to take your advice on this, Shikha, if you don't mind. You want me to stop and take on some questions about the personal statement now, or would you
Please,
rather
I
that I
will just,
complete?
just take 5 minutes and finish this. In the meantime, I would encourage students to please put their personal their questions on SOP in the chat box so that I can
Perfect.
moderate and have Veer answer them. In the meantime, Veer, please feel free to finish this and then we can just
Sounds
proceed.
good. Sounds good. So I've kept
Students,
it.
it's a
Yeah, I've
request to put in your questions in the chat box, okay?
great. So I've made the last few slides very brief, and again, remember, if you have questions for St. Andrews, email me, or we can always have another session about this. So I'll keep this very brief and not take too much time here. But it won't be right of me not to talk about the place that I called home for 4 years and absolutely loved, and obviously doing what I'm doing, I continue to love it. But it's a very, very unique university. It's a small sized town, historic, with the third oldest university in the UK after Oxford and Cambridge, over 600 years old. So beautiful town, medieval town, very important in its history as well. So before I start, I always ask this question, and I always find that many students get a little confused. When we talk about the UK or the United Kingdom, we often assume that it's just England, which isn't the case. So the UK actually is made up of 4 different countries. We've got England, we've got Scotland, which is where St. Andrews and Edinburgh and Aberdeen and some of the oldest universities are. We've got the Northern Ireland part of the UK, and then we've got Wales. So you've got Belfast in Northern Ireland, you've got Cardiff in Wales, obviously, London and Manchester in England, and so on. So important that you know the distinction, because especially when it comes to education, there's actually a difference in the way that each country might approach it. And equally, when it comes to law, Scottish law might differ from Irish law and English law, so on and so forth. So there are subtle differences, important that you know that. And why that's important is something that you'll find out in the next few slides. Generally speaking, St. Andrews, we're in Scotland and we're by the coast, but Edinburgh is the capital and an international airport. So we're very well connected. We're only an hour drive from Edinburgh, about 25 minutes from Dundee, which is also a city. And Edinburgh is an international airport. You can fly directly into Edinburgh, and also to any of the major cities in the UK or Europe. We also on the direct line to London. So St. Andrews to London is about 5 hours direct, and equally very well connected to other places. So we have just over 9,000 students, but very, very international. We're one of the most international universities in the UK, over 130 different nationalities, and not one nationality is dominant. So when we talk about, being very diverse, we often look at, Chinese, Indians, South Koreans really dominating, the percentage. Interestingly enough, at St. Andrews, our biggest international population is actually from the US, almost 17%. And then we have, Indians being 4 to 5%, Chinese about, again, under 10%, a lot of people from Europe and Canada as well. So it's truly diverse. It's not just international, but it's diverse within the international population as well. And because of that, you have a great network in terms of alumni. Being so old, we have alumni all over the world. And obviously that network helps. Today, you don't just go to a university for the academics, but you go for the network, for the kind of people you meet. It's part of the experience, of course. This extends to our faculty. Our faculties come from everywhere, very international as well. And that obviously has a great advantage in terms of being able to utilize that resource. What is a continuation rate? So continuation rate is basically what happens year on year when a student progresses from one year to the other, and doesn't drop out. So this is a very high rate. In fact, 3% is low in terms of what students might want to drop out for. It might be medical reasons, it might be financial, other things. So one of the highest. So important because I might convince you to go to St. Andrews, and you go there and you're like, oh God, this guy's really just told me something. That's not the case. We find students go there and they in fact enjoy the experience a lot more than what was even initially shared to them, and they stay on from one year to the other. Lastly, flexible degree structure, and I'll basically spend time on this going forward. So I'll elaborate on that point later. That's the town. It's a beautiful town. The town and university grew up together. They're intertwined. We've got the beach with a home of golf. We host a British Open every 4 years, thanks to which great standard of living, because it's a big tourist attraction as well, and probably why we're very well connected in terms of having our own bus station, train station, good links to the major cities, and also some great restaurants and so on. So if you see the white square in the middle of your screen is our library. We've got some of the older buildings in town. And then if you look at the top right-hand corner, that's where we have the sciences and management and so on. Um, and so it's really spread out. And it only takes about half an hour from one end to the other. So it's very, very safe, one of the safest sort of towns. And it's a campus-like environment. So very different from being in a city. If you're interested in being in a city, that's okay. If you're interested in a campus, then this is something you might want to look at, where everything is really associated with the university. Safe, comfortable, no need for transport, and so on. So important, I'm always hesitant a little bit to talk about rankings, even though we do really well in it. That's because use rankings. One of my colleagues always says this, and he says use rankings as an indicator, not your GPS or Google Maps. So a ranking is there to give you a rough understanding of where the university stands in a context. But don't, just because one university is number one, it doesn't mean number 4 is bad. Equally, take a look at what the particular rankings are trying to measure. Some will be undergrad focused, some will be research focused, and so on. So make sure you know what the rankings are measuring. But of course, we are number one in Scotland. We actually ranked ahead of Oxford and Cambridge in the last 2 years. This year ahead of Cambridge, last year ahead of Oxford in the Guardian domestic rankings, and otherwise in the Complete University Guide and other domestic rankings, we're number 3 after Oxford and Cambridge. Number 1 for student satisfaction have been for 10 out of the last 13 or 14 years. So right up there in terms of giving our students a good experience. In the world ranking context, and again the world rankings generally are a little skewed towards bigger universities, yet we've been in the top 100, in the top 1%, and we're in the 90s this year in the QS as well. So in a world context, also doing very well. Lastly, we've got a Go to Wall, which is for teaching excellence. It's a government survey, and that really explains our teaching quality. So just to give you an understanding of why we are as competitive as we are and why we have such a competitive process. Degree structure, most important. Go back to me talking about the 4 different countries. Okay, and the reason I talk about that is because Scotland follows a different degree structure to the rest of the UK. So England, Wales, Northern Ireland all have a 3-year degree. So it's very similar to what we have in India. You apply for a subject, that's what you do, graduate in 3 years. You can't really change your mind or do much more. And then if you want to do a master's, all the UK masters tend to be 1 year in length, not 2 years like the US. So you can be done in 4 years. Equally, the liberal arts in the US, for those who might want to be looking at, the liberal arts and sciences curriculum, it's a 4-year curriculum. You start off with a core subject group, which would be a science, a language, a math, and so on. And then you can go undecided. You later declare your major, and then you can, decide what you want to do. Scotland, where we are, sits in the middle of these two. So we're a 4-year degree. We're not a 3-year degree like England. We're a 4-year degree where you have the ability to choose a major. Remember that the Ucas allows you to choose a major, but we don't restrict you to that major. You can take 2 more subjects in your first year. And then after 2 years, you can decide you want to stick to it. You want to do a joint degree, maybe with something else. And then you sort of specialize and you do your research and dissertation, and you finish in 4 years. If you want to do a study abroad, it happens in your 3rd year as part of the 4-year system. So we have 4 faculties: arts, sciences, medicine, and divinity. And that's, there'll be subsections between these subjects, but these are to give you sort of the general subjects that we have. So you need to only indicate to us, do you want to be in the faculty of arts or the sciences? Medicine is completely different, so I'll talk about that later if anyone's interested. And then we have this unique group called the cross faculty. So these are subjects that can be done in the science faculty or the arts faculty. Remember, arts faculty, it's a BA, but it's called an MA. Going back to, course selection in my slides on the Ucas. Um, and so when you pick a subject like economics or management, I'll give you my example also. Um, you need to indicate what else you might want to do, right? So if you want to study management with computer science and biology, then you need to apply for a BSc in management. Equally, if you wanted to do a management with classics and a language, then you're looking at an MA in management. Management will remain the same. It's the other subjects which will be determined by your faculty. This is what it looks like. This is an example from the arts faculty. Subject one is what you apply for, and then you can pick up two more subjects. I had actually applied for philosophy and I had economics, and then I took up management. In second year, again, I did the three, but I realized, I was really enjoying management a lot and the financial side of management. And so I changed my mind. And then after 2 years, I switched to a single honors in management. I could have done a joint honors in economics and management. I could have done a single honors in any of the other two subjects as well. So important distinction here, you don't get this option in England. Similar example, someone doing history, French, philosophy, related subjects, enhance your knowledge base, gives you an opportunity to learn more. In a lot of cases, having a language is good for your CV as well. And they decided we want to continue with history. Equally could have done a joint honors in French and philosophy or one of the other two. For the sciences, very similar, just that in second year, instead of doing three subjects again, you narrow a little earlier. And what we find with the science students is they start off broad, for example, here in biology, and as they go through the system, they find their niche and they go on and major in the niche that they like. So traditions, all our students participate in university traditions. Something that an older university can probably give you and a younger university can't is student-led activities that have been going on for centuries now. So, you've got the May Day or the foam fight, but something I find very interesting is the academic families, where third years adopt first years as the academic kids. So you have uncles, aunts, and mothers, fathers, grandparents, so on. It's just a very, very nice way of integrating into university life, feeling comfortable. Your seniors have been through it, they can help you out. And it's just a very nice informal mentorship program. Equally, I'll give you an example of when I came back my first year from St. Andrews, and at the airport, my parents were like, so how was your first semester? And I was like, yeah, I have a new mom and dad. And you can just imagine the fright on their faces. And I very quickly had to explain the concept to them. So it's just very nice to be part of things that, Nobel laureates have been part of, centuries back and so on. It's just a very special feeling to be part of a historical university. Cost-wise, this year we're looking at about £25,000 as your tuition fee, and then your accommodation ranges from about £4,000 to £10,000, depending on what you pick. So if you're picking a shared accommodation, it'll be lower. If you're picking your own room and bathroom with food made for you, it'll obviously be higher. So depending on your type of accommodation, the cost varies, but it's within that range that you're looking at. We do have scholarships available, and this ranges from a few £1,000s as an accommodation award, going up to a few awards that we have, which is fully funded 25,000 as well. So make sure you know what support is available for you. You're not disadvantaged if you apply for a scholarship, and so we keep it completely separate. So do apply for the scholarships and look at the website for the funding opportunities available. Career support, we have a dedicated career center which extends to beyond your graduation as well for at least 3 years. And in terms of stats, about 96% of our graduates are either in full-time employment or further studies. So, very high rate that's equal with the likes of your London universities. So we have about 200 of the top UK employers come to campus and talk to our students and so on. But equally, we offer a lot of support in terms of mock interviews, assessment centers, CEOs coming to talk to you, societies organizing events, and so on. Equally, we obviously have graduates all over the world, and we have a portal through which you can interact with them. And it's like a closed app where it's like any other social media, but only for St. Andrews students and graduates, where you can take up mentorship with them as well. So very important to use your network. Entry requirements, we're looking at a minimum average of 90% across all your subjects. And in some subjects, there might be additional requirements in particular subjects. So for example, for a computer science, we might require 90% overall as a minimum, plus minimum 90% in maths. Now, if you get this, doesn't mean you get an offer. We follow a holistic approach. So all the other components of your application are equally important as your grades. So try and hit higher than obviously the average. But again, if it's not a cutoff, if you're at a 89.5, still send it in. Know that you'll be at the low end of our average, but we will read the application. It's not cutting you off immediately, but that's to give you our minimum requirements over there. If you're applying for the BSc, there might be some other requirements in terms of your quantitative subjects, but largely we're looking at your 10th grade for maths and English, and then we're looking at you meeting subject specific requirements. So go onto the website, it'll be in detail exactly what we require. If not, reach out to us. It's very, very transparent in the UK. I've mentioned that, but everything is looked at together. So remember, personal statement is 1/3 of that process. Very important, especially for competitive universities. Unfortunately, we're often looking for reasons to reject students. We get so many capable applications. So make sure you spend time on that. That's it from me. I've really condensed the St. Andrews bit, but if you have any questions, feel free to write to us, and I'll be happy to take on questions now as well.
It'll just be easy for me to moderate the questions for you.
Sounds
so
good.
that you can just catch your breath. That was a fantastic presentation as always. I don't have any questions. Typically, I do like to ask questions because you've covered everything that I would have wanted you to cover. So great job there. So I'm going to move on to the first question by Nabil Ahmed. You've already covered this, but I think it'll be nice if you just reiterate this. Since personal statements have a word limit of 4,000 characters, should it also include achievements in extracurricular interests alongside descriptions of students' personality and students' passion for subjects? I want to leave the floor to you.
So, great question, because while I covered the extracurricular, I haven't covered the rest of it. So, yes, extracurricular activities are very important. Now, the best way I can describe it is, let's say you're applying for psychology and you want to talk about you being a national level swimmer. Okay, if you just write, and I'm the captain of the swimming team and I swim nationally, that in the UK will have less relevance. What you want to do is either use that to display a transferable skill, so talk about it and say, being a swimmer and leading my school team, I understood how different people deal with competition in a different way. That again links back to psychology again, or talk about it in the sense that it's helped me be more disciplined. I can understand different approaches, and I've had to deal with a group of people and group of swimmers, and so I have that teamwork capability. So just listing your extracurricular, unfortunately, will have less importance. If you can either connect it back to the subject or connect it to a transferable skill, then suddenly we know it's a hobby that you have or you're really excelling in it, but at the same time it becomes more relevant to the subject or what you're going to be like in the classroom. When it comes about a student's personality, it can be divided into two. It can be divided into your personality as your extracurricular activities may depict, or it refers to your academic personality. If it's your academic personality, you don't need to spend too much time about it, because the expectation will be that the counselor will write about that aspect. So that's something you can look at in that sense. And your passion for the subject, that's of course 70%. So your personality and your extracurricular needs to be in that 30%. Everything else should be about the subject. Do you agree with that as a counselor, Shikha, that you talk about?
I totally second that. I mean, I don't think they need to really highlight their personality there at all. Like what you said, the academic referee or the counselor, whoever's writing the letter of recommendation, if there's any aspect that supports, like, for students who want to pursue medicine, I always write the empathy that the student displays.
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand with the career that they want to take in. I don't have to write that they're lazy or they're hardworking. I mean, those kind of things, they're baseless. I have to substantiate it with an anecdote and
exactly.
Like that. So that can be done.
Exactly.
Rest, I think you covered very well. Passion for the subject comes in the fact that you've done the super curriculars, which we keep harping about as counselors and university reps for UK. So I think that takes care of that. Great. Moving on to the next question, Veer. If I have a university that I prefer more than the other university, is it possible for me to send a different application to that university?
So, unfortunately not. So if you're applying, like I said, even if a university has a direct application, what the UCAS has stressed is that, 5 is the total. And if you're applying through the UCAS, then you stick through the UCAS. If you're applying through the Common App, then make sure that the 5 that you're applying for are all on the Common App. So don't get into that sort of a situation because it could land you in trouble. Um, they are, you know, look, all 5 are going to assume that you want to go to them. So, don't remember that if I get an application from you, I don't know where else you've applied. Of course, if you apply by the 15th of October, I may guess that you're applying to Oxford and Cambridge, but we get so many of our applications at that time anyway. But apart from that, we'll always assume that you want to go to us. So don't worry about that aspect. It's quite okay. Um, we'll assume that you want to go to us anyway.
Great. Next question. Billabong is an A-level and CBSE school. They have a thriving A-level faculty, Veer. So this is a question from somebody who's asking, who's definitely UK-centric and saying, do A-level international student gets an advantage while applying in the UK?
So the answer is, in terms of entry requirements, it's a no. Because the UK is very, very clear in sort of what we want. So we will lay out, if we're accepting the CBSE or the ISE, we'll be very clear that this is what we require. If you're talking about the A levels, we'll be clear in terms of how many A stars or A's or whatever it is that you need. And if you're doing the IB, similarly in that sense. Where, generally in England, because the A level is the English curriculum, it's already very, very specialized. So students who do the A level find it easier to go into the 3-year program because you're only doing a few subjects. Whereas if you're doing the Scottish Highers or the IB or the CBSE, you're good in 5-6 different subjects. And so that's why I'll say the Scottish program is great for people like that, because you're still not sure maybe of what you want to do. So the A level is made for the English 3-year program, whereas the 4-year program might actually be slightly better, when you're talking about people who are doing a wider range of subjects who might not know exactly what they want to do. So in that sense, yes, if you're applying to England, you might have more clarity than the others, but equally others also might have the clarity. But in terms of entry requirements, no, if we list out what we require, we will take in those. We have to be very transparent with our approach. So you won't get an advantage there. You will have to meet whatever the requirements are listed.
Thank you, Veer. I think that was it when it comes to questions. Like I said, it was a very, very comprehensive presentation. Absolutely, fantastic. I'm going to ask Preeti ma'am to just give her vote of thanks for this brilliant presentation. Preeti ma'am, if you could just...
Yes, thanks, Shikha. Thanks very much. And thanks, Veer. I was absolutely blown away by your presentation. I'm based in UK, and we've had multiple associations, and really this was the most comprehensive yet very lucid. That's the reason you don't see the chat box being filled with innumerable questions for you to tackle. So thank you so very much for making the time and being a part of the community, and really encouraging everybody, because these SOPs which you've spoken of, yes, they are very UK relevant, but they are a very composite structure for applications in the Indian New Age universities as well. So really a heartfelt thanks, Veer.
No, of course, always happy to talk to students, more so because I've been through the process and I love talking to students and sharing my perspective. And since I had a great experience in the UK, I love sharing that with students as well. So it's great that that there's so many here and you're counseling them brilliantly. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks very much. And may I now request Shikha to please move forward with the Common App applications.
Thank you, Veer. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. In another
Great.
So I will just start the presentation on Common App.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone. I'll head out now.
Yes, Veer. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for staying on. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
So I think, Shikha, you don't need any introductions. Would you want me to formally kind of
No, no,
reintroduce?
please. I
Yeah,
think
okay.
most of the students have met me.
Yeah, okay,
I
wonderful.
feel like I'm a big part of Billabong now, so I'm just going to take it from there. And,
Okay, fabulous.
I know that we overshot time, but it was just so interesting. It was so useful. So there was a question
Yes,
in the chat box about Indian application.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like Preeti ma'am rightly said, that covers it. So a plain university may have a statement of purpose. Now you know what a statement of purpose is. If you're applying to for an art university, a lot of you who have met want to apply for design university. This is exactly what it is. They do not wish to know your personality. We will talk about your personality aspects that you want us to highlight in the letter of recommendations, and most of the new age universities have letter of recommendations, including Jindal, Flame, Ashoka, Kriya, SD. They will reach out to school. So the importance of your school counselor and your school connect stems from the fact that the university will reach out directly to your school. Under no circumstances would they take a third party. Any intelligent university will not take the information from a third party about a student. So that is the relevance of your statement of purpose and the common app essay, and they need to be in synchrony with what the school is saying about you and how the school can advocate for you in your letter of recommendation or otherwise. I remember once I was a part of a school. This was 3 years ago. I had just joined the school 3 months into the into the application season. I'd met this kid, and I absolutely, your kids, each one of them, even in 3 months. And this kid was brilliant. And this top liberal arts university, I'm not going to take the name, rejected the interview for this kid. And we had worked very hard on the application. And this was a kid who was only applying to that university, was from an international board, was not looking at any other university. We had as a backup applied to a foreign university in Canada. I remember at that point in time, me calling the head of admissions of that university. And they were very surprised. They couldn't believe somebody could be that agitated. And I said, I've read the essays, we've vetted the LORs, and this kid deserves an interview. What happened? So they gave me their side of the story. And I said, I've been a counselor for over a decade. And this is the first time I've made a call like this to your university, and a relatively new university, but a top university in India. And I said, I would really appreciate if, just because you trust me as a school counselor, you would give this person an interview. They gave that person an interview, and we were very worried. As a school, we were biting our nails. The principal got involved, the headmistress got involved, and we were very touche about it, that how can this happen to a student of ours? And the student called me and he said, "Man, don't worry, these things happen." I couldn't be more proud. He got an interview. He got the offer. It was unheard of. This is a big liberal arts university. I wrote a thank you email to them saying you are rock stars. And they wrote back to me and they said, no, he's the real rock star. He's thriving in that university. He's still in touch with me. So that's how your schools advocate for you. Why we want to be part of your SOPs and your personal essays is because we know you so well. Your counselor on ground, Preeti ma'am. I mean, every time I sit in a session, I'm surprised. She has a whole plethora of information about the student. She knows them like, her own kid. She'll say, no, this kid is not talking about this aspect. He's very good at this. She's very good at this. So I'm sorry I'm digressing from personal essays, but just to lay a bit of background of why your SOP and your personal essay must go through the school, because we synchronize it. We are your advocates. So please do remember that. The whole idea of getting a university of a stature of St. Andrews, and I don't know how many of you attended the Indian University Fairs. May I please have a thumbs up if you attended the Indian University Fairs? Also will give us a break. I know you just had one workshop and you're probably wondering, so may I have a show of hands? Femine ma'am, can you ask your students? How many of you just need a thumbs up? No thumbs up. Or I can't see the thumbs up. So any which ways, it's important that you're part of these workshops. I can see Preeti ma'am's thumbs up. So it's important that you attend these workshops, because when you really like a university and then you come back to us and you say, ma'am, I attended St. Andrews workshop. And that's happened to me a lot, where they attend a certain workshop and, they come back and they say, we really love this university. We can be your advocates. One mail from the counselor, from the school saying that, listen, this kid is genuinely interested. really makes them sit and take notice. That's the power of your school counselor. So please be, mindful of that when you work on your essays. Moving on to personal essay. Okay, I'm just going to give you a background as to what a personal essay is. A personal essay is a statement that gives you a chance to delve deeper into your interests, experiences, passions, and strengths. Please note the things: interest, experience, passion, and strength. You can discuss almost anything in that. That is a US essay. That would also work for the new age liberal arts universities like Ashoka. They would have a prompt, and I am going to be talking about the prompt shortly. I'm going to be bringing the prompts right here. So there are no rules as to how you tell your story. So I am going to give you some experience, some examples of how people think they can tell their stories, but that's not how it works. The common application is a key part of your college application. Just like Veer spoke about Ucas for UK, US is common app, right? That's the main application. A lot of universities which were outside the ambit of common application have entered common applications, except for University of California, which is a separate application. And there's Coalition, of course, which is a separate discussion. So according to the data, this is pretty recent, mind you, just pre-COVID, NACAC, which is the National Association for College Admission Counseling, 56% of the colleges said the personal statement moderate to considerable significance in admission process. Highly selective institutions, the Harvards, the MITs, where a lot of you wanted to go to when I met you, everybody wants to have a personal essay, right? They read the personal essay, they look out for mistakes in the personal essay, they grant you admission based on the personal essay. The prompts for Ashoka, each university will have a different prompt. Ashoka changes its prompts every year. These are this year's prompts. So we want to know and understand how you observe, perceive, think. I would have loved it if some student had volunteered to read this. Can we have somebody? Would anybody want to volunteer to read it? You don't have to switch on your video. I'm not going to take that comfort away from you. No, okay, so I have to do it. So, okay, so we want to know and understand how you observe, perceive, think, and engage with yourself and the world around you. Respond to all parts of the prompt. Now, they are saying, don't say just observe, just perceive. Make sure that you respond to each and every word that's mentioned here. Reflect on a belief or an opinion held by you, which you questioned and examined. What initiated your questioning? Describe the intellectual process you undertook to examine this belief or opinion. Explain the results of your reflection, the changes that you saw in your belief. Now, this is a different prompt from what it was last year, right? Typically, UK is 4,000 characters. That's a little one page and a little over that. Ashoka is 400 words plus 150 plus 150, and US is 650 words. That's the word count that we have. These are two smaller prompts that Ashoka has. Last year, they had a beautiful prompt in 150 words. You had to describe yourself to your roommate. So now that's something to think about, right? I mean, how in 150 words, because brevity is also needed there, will I describe myself to somebody else? Typically, Ashoka is a typical Ashokan. What they're looking at is somebody who can think, who's intellectually challenging. So one of the prompts that got an interview for one of my students was about the fact that she's a girl child, and she was talking about, the fact that the experience of being a woman in India, and how, a joint family looked at that, and how she had to question a lot of traditions, a lot of things that happen in a joint family setup in India. Another student of mine wrote about superstition beliefs, vis-a-vis scientific facts. Very interesting. He talked about cows and, how we associate them to certain religious sanctions and something, and how science teaches him something else. So how he spoke about that, how he fought. Another one of my students wrote about a particular festival in India which requires women to fast, and how he challenged that for the women. Another student wrote about the fact that his grandfather passed away, and how, there's a tradition that his grandmother wasn't allowed to enter, the cremation ground. So it can be something as relevant as that. It can be something as simple as the fact that, there was a club and an editorial board, somebody wanted to write it in a particular way. You don't have to go to tragedy galore for Ashoka, but typically they want to see, are you erudite? Have you read? What are you working at? What projects you've done. So all of that is showcased through Ashoka. Please remember, Ashoka follows it up with an interview. I presented with IELTS USA, University of Columbia, University of California, and two other universities last Thursday. And University of California said that it picks out a few applications to authenticate what the kids are saying. They actually do checks. They do checks by writing to your school counselor. They may do checks by checking the websites that you've given, whether they actually work, the timeline that you've set. So they authenticate that. So does Indian University. Indian University of the stature of Ashoka may just pick out a few handful applications and check what is working on what. They may not share this with you. I was part of this in-group and had the privilege to this, to be privy to this information, but those checks are natural. So please do not, under advice of a particular senior, somebody else, somebody who's an uncle or a relative who's helping you outside, write something that is not true. Ethics are the most important to top universities. You have to not change yourself to fit Ashoka. You have to be truth to yourself and write what works for you, and that may land you in Ashoka. They will check all this in the interview. They will hold you accountable in the interview. You will be hopefully meeting Ashoka University shortly. I actually asked one of their admission committee reps as to what does not work. And they say when students write things that are untrue and they are not able to substantiate it in the interview, that is one thing that is a sure shot move for them. So please be mindful of this fact, right? What are the prompts in Common App that work? These are US university prompts. You do not have to write on each of them. I had a student who I shared the prompt linked with once, and he sent me these many essays, writing one on each prompt. No. How it works is you typically pick 2 prompts, because sometimes what happens is what you're thinking does not translate into paper the way you want it to. So always a good idea to have 2 essays ready for your US applications. Even if the one could be completely trashed by your counselor. I may read it, Ayusa may read it and may say, what is this? This is not working at all. But the other essay, could be picked up, something that you thought that wasn't that big a deal. However, also remember, having 2 essays works if both the essays are equally good. Your counselor may recommend one essay for the go-ahead, and the other essay could be fitted elsewhere, because US doesn't just have these main essays. They have something called supplemental essays, which are smaller essays. Why are you applying for business? That is where your 4,000 character SOP translates into a 350-word SOP called Why This Major in US. There could be another question. Please describe yourself, to a roommate, or talk about a book that you read. US universities love people who read. That is why sometimes somebody asked a question about A-levels. We answered it beautifully when he said that you have an advantage, that you have an edge when you want to go and settle there. The transition is seamless, right? So similarly, you have to make sure that your essays are in order. So they're going to be around 4 or 5 essays minimum per university, which is why you have to research. Well, you cannot be applying to 50 universities. 50 into 5, I can't even do the math. You'll be writing that many essays, around 250 essays. That is humanly impossible. Then you will not use your own voice. What did we just talk about? Universities authenticate. We spoke to you about this, that the moment your essay is not written by you, you are caught. Trust me, I've been reading essays for over a decade. The moment I see an essay and a CV, I can tell the student hasn't done it. I need to spend 5 minutes with the student to gauge that. Just imagine, these universities call themselves the dinosaurs of admission. How much time it takes for them to really understand whether you've written an essay or not. There's a complete different style of a high schooler and that of an adult who writes for you. So please don't put yourself in a situation when you have to write 250 essays and you get all rejections. Make sure that you do your due diligence and pick out 5, 6 good universities with dream, reality, and safety in that. And that's how you apply. So I'm just going to not read out each prompt. The first prompt is about your background. What is it in your background that you'd like to share? You cannot talk about your grandfather fighting for independence. You cannot talk about your background being about your dad setting up his business. It is not their background. Students have a background. So it could be that, I was learning music right from a very early age on. I could be applying to physics, but here US gives me the flexibility to talk about music. It could be a background interest or talent. It could be my interest in reading and how that got me to think. Recently, a student of mine sent me a brilliant essay where he spoke about the fact that he discussed Gita with his grandmother and how that impacted his mental health in the COVID times. So you can write these things, and these are brilliant things to go for. The second thing would be the lessons we learn from obstacle. And this is talking about a failure, a challenge, a setback. What did you learn from this? So you basically talk about, any challenge, any obstacle. It could be in sports, it could be in class. One of my students wrote a funny, humorous essays. UK does not appreciate humor, but a US essay could be humorous, provided it's intellectually done. It keeps in mind the sensibilities of other. Please remember, they come from a different culture. What may be medicine for you may be poison for them. Please do not, hurt anybody's sensibilities when you're being humorous. So one of my students wrote this brilliant humorous essays about chemistry being an obstacle. He was an A-level student, brilliant at maths and physics, and somehow just couldn't touch the A-star in internals in chemistry. And he wrote about how chemistry was literally his arch enemy, and how he got over that, and how chemistry became something, big for him, and he totally enjoyed that. And it was written in a funny manner. It was a humorous account, and I died laughing when I was reading it. So that's something to think about. Please remember, you don't have to be humorous if you're genuinely not a humorous person. It's not important that every essay is funny. Everybody comes from a different mindset, so that's fine. The third one is reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or an idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? This is again very similar to the Ashoka essay that we discussed, cows versus science, women traditions that don't work. So this is basically that, and how you took a step forward. One of my students, the student who wrote about, women empowerment, wrote a song about it and made a YouTube video of it. And she also wrote about the fact how she challenged it. So you don't have to talk about a time that, you don't have to just mention an idea and say, oh, I don't like this idea, that this is happening in our country, or this is happening. Please don't take this to mean that you can badmouth your country or badmouth a system, badmouth an organization. It doesn't work like that. It is basically you talking about an idea that doesn't work for you. It could work for another person. We have to give them the benefit of the doubt, and how you made an effort to change that idea, something that was outdated and didn't work for you. The fourth essay is reflect on something that someone has done for you that maybe made you happy or thankful. This is a new prompt. This is the first time this prompt has come in, because we all need to be grateful. We all are fighting a big battle here in India, especially about COVID. And that is what it is all about. It's a feel-good essay. It is to make you feel, it could be a small thing. Please do not assume that we have to write about something very, very big. It could be a teacher reaching out to you in a time of crisis, which you did not expect. How you were grateful, how this gratitude, motivated you, or something like that. Something has done for you in a surprising way, and how that gratitude impacted you. Basically, a US essay is a journey of a person. It cannot just be a story. The story has to have an underlying theme. How I grew from point A to point B. Now, whether that growth was in me becoming a more grateful person, in me becoming a happier person, in me becoming a more positive person, in me becoming a more responsible, more open-minded person, it rests on me. I remember one of my students wrote about the fact that, she visited a mosque in one of her visits ages ago, and there was a tradition that she wasn't very comfortable with, and how she wrote that how stupid she feels now about she should respect that tradition. Beautifully it's come out. Each culture has its traditions which we need to respect, and how she grew as a person in that. It was a beautiful essay. Another essay which has been very popular is about a student who interned as a waitress, and how she wrote about the stories that she picked from her customers and how that made her grow as a person. These are some fantastic essays to read. Incidentally, one resource which everybody must use for reading essays is John Hopkins' website. Every year they put up the essays that were best, and they're some of the simplest essays that you read. So that is something to think about. Now, the thankful prompt is new, so please use it wisely. Think about it, spend some time with your friend, class teacher, understanding what you're really thankful about. I have a student who wrote about the fact that she used to do mountaineering and she's thankful about that cup of Maggie that she got en route. Brilliant essay. I read about it and I was like, wow. So literally like that. So discuss an accomplishment, event, or a realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself, right? So any accomplishment that you had, maybe in school, maybe you started a club, maybe you did an internship, and how that led to a personal growth. What made you differ? Like this intern who wrote about the fact that, she heard people's stories and how that changed her as a person is a brilliant essay to read about. So that's personal growth. I know a lot of ideas seem overlapping, but if you choose a prompt, you're supposed to enter the prompt in the Common App. So make sure that you're answering the prompt, that you don't answer another prompt. It should be written in a manner that it looks like an answer to the question that you put on the Common App. The next one is describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you, and who do you turn to when you want to learn more? This absolutely cannot be a description of your CV. Common App has a big section called additional section and 10 activities that are your CV activities that you have to list there. So when you're talking about this, be very careful of what you're writing about. It cannot be that you're applying for astrophysics and you've written astrophysics is what I get involved in. It could be that you find language fascinating, that you wrote about your learning of Spanish language and how that impacted you. And you will still be chosen for astrophysics. US is looking for a holistic profile. They are very bored when you explain your CV in the Common App essay. That is a typical UK SOP and not a US essay. For some universities in India, a UK SOP is the format. It will be in your prompt. If they've written statement of purpose, or if they've written that they want to understand why you've applied to this major, go to the UK SOP formula. If they've written a prompt, if they've written talk about your accomplishments, your personal growth, you're going towards a US essay. Last one is share an essay on a topic of your choice. It can be already something you've already written, or one that responds to a different prompt, or design your own prompts. One of my students actually wrote an essay on philosophy when she was answering this, and that was absolutely wrong. We cannot have an essay on a subject that is a graded paper that is used in UK Cambridge applications, not in Common App. So when they say on your choice, maybe you feel you want to write about something that doesn't fit the prompts at all, and you want to write something completely different, but it cannot be an essay on a subject. That is not what they're looking at. Typically, if you're smart about it, you should be able to fit in your essay in prompts. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is certain myths when it comes to the US essays. This is a recent conversation with a student that I had, and she told me that the alumni has told her that you must write a tragedy galore. It's not true. The alumni has not written tragedies from whatever I have read, and I read each essay. So you must share an essay which is your story. It should be literally like it was lying there. I picked it up as a teacher. I figured, oh my God, this is this student of mine. This is their story, right? So that is what it is. So humor and slice of life's essay also succeed. Like I said, there was a slice of life. There was a student who spoke about the fact that he loved biking and he moved from a big city to, a residential school, and how biking was different. It was a really slice of life fun essay to read. Incidentally, we had a essay workshop that I attended by University of Southern California, and Julie said the best essay that she had read was about Maggie being used as a currency in one of the hostels. How imaginative. It was written in a funny way. It was written about the fact how the child grew while using Maggie as a currency to get things done from his hostel mates. Another rep told us about a day spent at Disneyland and how that was a brilliant essay. Now, it cannot be a description of what I did in Disneyland. It obviously had to be about how that person grew through that day and what worked for them. So that's something to think about. Something that I've already covered, your CV must showcase your story. It cannot be, your essay must showcase your story. It cannot be your CV in a nutshell. That's a UK SOP. Please remember that. There is enough space in the form to showcase your CV. There is an additional section. There is a section on activities. And there is a new section since 2 years, which is called the COVID essay. If you suffered a great loss, if there has been a financial strain, all that can be mentioned in a COVID essay. That cannot be your main Common App essay. Please remember that. And students, be mindful of the fact that you had to go online is really no strain in this day and age. We know that it's difficult. You miss your classroom banter, you miss your friends, but that's not really a tragedy in COVID that happened that you want to write about. They will wonder if you'll be able to handle the semesters online. What works in essays? Be authentic. Please remember, there is no replacement for ethics, and US universities, along with UK universities, run a plagiarism check. So they have very highly invested in softwares that can pick out if you have picked up lines from internet, or if somebody's rechurned your essay. I know of a couple of people who give the same essay to 5 different students. This happened to 1 year to a student of mine, and the student was blacklisted. You don't want that to happen to yourself. So please write your own essays, discuss it with your counselor. No quotes, use space wisely. 650 words. There is so much to write. In the morning, I was reading an essay about a student who'd written about how he moved schools and how, he wanted to be part of the Ed Board and his whole journey. And he wrote this whole thing about what happened after he got selected in Ed Board. And I just didn't understand the purpose. There are only 650 words. He wrote about the names of the teachers who supported him in getting selected. How is that relevant to anybody? Just like your parents' occupation, your parents' pedagogy is not relevant to anybody in US or UK. A teacher's name or somebody's name when an organization that you work with is irrelevant unless you say, okay, I was part of Oxfam, you're trying to explain a context. So that's different. Show, don't tell. I learned this phrase from a student of mine. I was in the first year of essays, and he taught me this, went on to Yale and was doing very, very well. Where he said that your essay has to describe, it has to be written so beautifully that a picture paints in front of me. Now, that doesn't mean I have to give deep descriptions of, I had blue curtains, there was an, a window air conditioner or a whatever. So those kind of descriptions is not what I'm looking at. The picture that I'm painting is about, chemistry, how the class was, bring in humor, make it, make the person visualize. When you read a book, what's a good book? That makes you visualize. You're actually transported to that world. So that's what they mean when show, don't tell. Second thing, show, don't tell means also support what you're saying by anecdotes. I was training with an interviewer on university interviews, and something that they said struck home. They said that you can't say in an interview, I am empathetic. Empathy is not told about. Somebody who's empathetic doesn't shout it from the rooftops. They describe it through their actions. I started a COVID helpline, showcases that I'm empathetic. So show, don't tell. Don't write who you are. Show who you are through anecdotes, right? So that's very important. Don't use an unusual topic for an effective, and don't mistake that that's going to happen. Just because today I'm going to be writing, or today I spoke to you about mountaineering and suddenly everybody starts writing about mountaineering. No, if you haven't done it, if it's not you, please do not write about it. Please do not today start thinking about, that I did this internship, what was my experiences, what did I hear, so should I write about that because Shikha ma'am said that one essay worked. Should I write about currency? Should I write about Maggie? No, an unusual topic may not work for you. You may write a very simple thing. On an average, I read at least 5 essays per application cycle on fitness and on music. Each story is different. It's how it's told that makes a difference, right? So write a topic that's closer to your heart. That works in a liberal arts India essay or a US essay. Tips for success. Always go to your school counselor. They will be able to substantiate what you have written. They will be able to highlight and synchronize it in their letters of recommendations. Next slide, letters of recommendations and essay synchrony is very, very important. So that's something that should work for you. Third thing, peer review. I will not suggest that you take your essay to your batchmates to vet. The urge to plagiarize, the urge to copy ideas is too strong. When I say peer review, by that I mean somebody who's a cousin who's studying there, or a senior of the school who's maybe gone to a place and that works for you, or maybe a teacher who studied for a particular place that you're genuinely interested in. So peer review is that. Your teachers reviewing it is also sort of a peer review, where they give you somebody who's a mentor to you. In addition to your counselor, they can also read your essay and say, oh my God, this is absolutely not you, Mehak, or this is completely you, Mehak. So that works, and that's something that you can look at. Grammar check, extremely important. You have a fantastic English faculty. Counselors are ultimately not English teachers. I'm so happy one of the students just turned on their video. I'm sorry, I'm digressing from the thing. It just makes me very, very happy. So grammar is very, very important to check. Please go back to your English teachers. Please let them review, do a final grammar check. You can also buy you can also use the free version, basic version of Grammarly to check your essays. So that's something that you can look at, right? I'm going to just take you through examples of a few essays that worked. Okay. Is it possible to get a volunteer to read, or do you just want to hear my voice and monotony will set in after that? Anybody would like to volunteer? You don't have to switch on your camera to read. I'm just throwing it open out to the house. No, nobody wants to read. Okay. So the prompt is obviously there. It's an accomplishment or an event that sparked a period of personal growth. So this student of mine spoke about Post-its, how Post-its changed her worldview. I couldn't even think of that. That totally came from her. She spoke about the fact that she always liked harmony in her life, and she was superly organized, and she had this box of Post-its and she used to put Post-its there. She's, by the way, going to Duke University. I'm very proud of that. However, listen to this. I remember the first time I saw them. It was the day before middle school. Copious heaps of what seems to be an Indian girl, the most resplendent creation for the colossal burden that was coming her way the next day, the future. Her eyes beheld the polychromatic harmony, the fluorescent, the pastel, the plain. Her fingers fondled with the ease of attachment and detachment, and her lips enunciated a word whose humble syllables weighed the weight of the emotions it bore for years to come. Post-its. Humans have a miraculous gift of living in the present. However, I, long before even the callow age of 10, lived on the very edge of it, grappling persistently for a taste of the future, the formidable unknown. This tender yet vehement desire to know how life would unfold recast itself into almost neurotic tendency to plan each day of the 1440 minutes I completed against future for, manifesting itself into ease and allure of Post-its. So she speaks about her anxiety, how she was superly organized. And then towards the end of the essay, this is just a bit that I've picked up from the essay, she spoke about how she left Post-its and how it was a release for her that she could live in the present and she didn't have to plan each minute of her life. So brilliant essay, spoke about her growth. And the idea was very unusual. It came from her. And the first time I met her for her essay coaching, she told me, ma'am, I am not going to be writing about my CV. And she has a brilliant CV. So I was like, I am so glad for that. So that's what it is. Please remember, she's somebody who studied an international curriculum. Her literature was superb. She, in fact, gave an AP in literature. She's probably going to minor in literature along with economics. That's why her language is a little flowery. We do not advise using flowery language. And her first draft had big words. We had to actually advise her to tone it down. That's what we did. That's the only advice we had for her, to tone down her essay. So please do not feel the pressure to use big words. The vocab can be very, very simple in the essay, and that's absolutely fine. They know you come from a country where English is the second language. The next essay. This is a recent essay, and this kid is going on a full scholarship to study jazz. She has written nothing about jazz here. She's a Bengali who was living in Delhi, so speaking English and Hindi. But who relearns their Matrabhasha at the age of 13. We had advised her to give a translation here and italicize Matrabhasha, which she did in the final draft. It's a rainy August afternoon. I'm being taught by my mother tongue. Clustering around my desk, my friends pull out a battle-bruised, ink-speckled volumes brimming with the wizened erudition of our forefathers. Hindi poetry and prose alike are thrust impassionately in front of me. Hapless pencils sent spinning off the table. I I clear my throat and begin to flounder through the labyrinth script on the page. Hushed giggles escape throats. So she's laughing at herself. Look at how humor is enmeshed in this without being obviously humorous. She's laughing at herself, that I was so incompetent at reading this. The gentle corrections of pronunciation punctuate my feeble utterances. When this unwieldy display of my cultural incertitude is complete, I'm rewarded with a round of applause. Hindi has not always held this ability to topify my vocal cords. At home, walls covered in solemn memory-stained certificate with excellence in Hindi. Report cards murmur of my linguistic exploits. These feats, however, were perpetually masked by a layer of detachment. Hindi, you see, is a language with which I have struggled to forge a concrete relationship. English, that cultural vestige from India's colonial era and powerful enabler of opportunity, has become my primary tongue. So she spoke about this, and this was fantastic. She has written nothing about the fact that she wants to pursue jazz. She was a student council person. She was a topper in her class. None of that showcases in her essay. What she spoke about was her struggles, the capability to laugh at herself. I know this all seems a little overwhelming in the beginning, but I just wanted to showcase that you don't have to write an essay about your CV, and it can be completely different in a US. Any questions? Anybody has any questions? Because that was the end of this. I'm going to work on and switch topics a little bit from there and work on your long list for CIALFO. So I'm going to just stop sharing here for a minute and ask you if there are any questions that you have on your essays, your personal essays, any differences between personal essays or SOP. Is Ashoka clear? Anything there? You can put it in the chat box.
I would really request Fehmeen and Mr. Ayush, if you can please unmute yourself and urge the students to ask any questions, especially because Shikha is here, and I think this is a great time to interact with her.
Jyotika, you sent me 4 messages about what SOP is in context of Indian universities. I hope that's clear. It's a similar to a UK university essay. So when the university is saying, write your statement of purpose, what they mean is that you have to write a UK SOP where you talk about what have you done in your super curriculars, which are different from extracurriculars / co-curriculars. They are asking you, you want to study business. By business, what have you done outside? When we meet you one-on-one, the effort that we make, for those of you who haven't showed up for the meetings, we speak to you one-on-one about how to build your profile, what super curriculars to add. I mean, Preeti ma'am's gone to the extent of saying, oh, I can arrange this internship for you, I can do this photography thing for you. So that is what we mean by SOP, doing all that, the things that we keep harping about in individual sessions. Some of you we've met twice. We want to see progress in your profiles. So please do take out time from your busy schedules to meet us. It will be really humbling. We want to know you. We want to give you the best letters of recommendation. We want to vet your essays to see that they go in synchrony. There was a time I remember when a student, in one of the sessions forgot to tell that he's a great singer, and ma'am pointed it out, the counselor pointed it out. So they know you so well. So please do take advantage of this. So in Indian SOP, when it says statement of purpose, Jyotika, clearly means please write what have you done for your major, right? Flame and Jindal SOPs will typically be like that. Flame would also ask you a question, why liberal arts? So you will be talking about what have you done in liberal arts. You may be applying for psychology. So I'll say, I've done this internship, I've done this online course, I've read this 5 books. This is what I learned from this. What we said, not just listing, elucidate your learning, go a step ahead, and then say why flame and why liberal arts, right? They clearly say that. An Indian SOP, an Indian personal essay like that of Ashoka or Kriya, Plaksha has an essay and a video interview. It's a video, recorded video, so you can talk about yourself. We'll be talking about you as a person. Ashoka has already given clear prompts. How do you describe yourself? Talk about a book. These are the recent prompts, but the older ones were like that. They even have an essay on the spot. So if you've gotten your essay written from somebody else, you will get caught, because on the spot you will be asked to write an essay on a picture speaks 1,000 words, and you guys are very smart. You can write about that. When I heard that essay, I was like, my God, how do kids write like that? And I know that, with the kind of English support you have, you can think like that. So an essay for a liberal arts university could be akin to a US essay depending on the prompt that they have given you, or could be a UK SOP depending on the prompt. So there is no straight bucket which says Sare essays we have to write like this. It depends. You have to read what they're asking you to write. I hope that clears it, Jyotika. Jyotika, can you just give me a thumbs up or say, no, ma'am, I didn't understand still?
Always remember you are live on Facebook.
So not answering is really something, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's that. Okay. Anybody else, any question that I may not have answered? I'm so crystal clear. I'm so proud of myself. So was Veer. There are no questions. You know, either that or nobody was listening. So
no, I think, no, really, on behalf of the students, I would like to say that there's so much of matter which is thrown at them, and they're taking time to digest. And clearly, because we are coming from a space of unknown, so please bear with us.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't want to miss out on any questions. I don't want it to be like, oh my God, I should have asked this. No question is a foolish question. Students, please understand, we know you're doing this for the first time. We may have done it over and over again, but we understand this is your first time. No question is silly. No question is foolish. And secretly, your friends will thank you when you ask those questions. Prithvi, do you have your question here? Because you keep switching on your video. So I'm just wondering if you want to ask anything. No. Prithvi's completely gone mute. Okay, I'm going to move back to my slides. The last slide was making your college list on CIALFO. How to make your long list, very, very important. I know we've switched topics. We've taken you through SOPs and essays and Ashoka and US, and now we're coming back to the college list, but this is important. This is because we want to support you to the best of our ability. So whenever you build your college list, there are 3 categories. Please remember that. There is a dream, there is a target, there is a safety. Anybody wants to go ahead with what is a dream, it would be fantastic. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And if you do not have, if it doesn't hit home, if it's not correct, that's perfectly fine. So in case you want to, please just tell me, ma'am, I want to unmute myself and talk about this. So a dream is typically a university that is out of my reach. I may be getting 85. The university may be looking at historically as a trend 90%. What Veer said, UK universities very clearly write down on their websites they want a 90%, they want an A-star, AA. But a US university may not write that. You will understand whether they're a dream or not by looking at some of the data that's available on CIALFO. There would be profiles there. Please make the effort to see their ACT, SAT range, their score range, and you'll get an idea whether it is in your range or above your range. So anything above your range is a dream. A target is a university which, if I have 85, is looking at 85, right? So that's my target. I'm going to hit it, right? We're at the same level, and that's something that I'm going to definitely get. A safety is a university. I may be wondering what is going to happen next year. Both are going to happen, they're not going to happen. I may get nervous in the middle of an exam if I'm giving a board. So I may dip from 85 to say 80 or 78, and that is my safety. Just to have that safety net so I don't topple completely, while rope walking. So it's important that I have that safety net. So that's a dream, target, safety. The typical formula we use for UK, since only 5 applications are allowed, is 1 dream, 2 targets, 2 safeties. Please remember that we cannot have 3 dreams. We cannot have only Oxford. You can't apply to Oxford and Cambridge any which ways, both together. So we can't have Oxford, Imperial, LSE, and then we don't, our marks are 85 and we didn't get into any of them. And that plan is done and dusted. So please have 1 dream. You have to pick one. Yes, it's a difficult decision, but it's an intelligent thing to do if you've done your research. If you've used your CIALFO from now, spoken to your counselors, it makes sense. So that's the formula for Ucas. For UK, for US schools actually have a cap of 5 to 6, but in India, we are more flexible. We want you to think, we want you to research. So like I said, minimum 4 to 5 essays per university. Just imagine the amount of essays you're writing, and there's only so many essays that you can cut, copy, paste. One thing that Veer said, I'm going to go back to and say you cannot write the names of the university in the essay, so be mindful of that. So for US, keep a list of say 7 to 8 good colleges with a mix of 1 or 2 dreams, 3-4 targets, 3-4 safeties, because US admissions can go any which way. There is no formula that anybody has discovered that works completely 100%. How do you check out whether this school is for you? By school, I mean university. You look at the cost. You discuss with your parents. That's why we want parents in the sessions. What is the budget that one has planned for their child? Everybody has a, financial planning for everything. For a house we buy, for a car we buy. So this is an important decision. You're going to be spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees. So what is the cost that you're looking at? Please eliminate universities that are above the cost that you plan for yourself. Maybe keep one or two, because it just doesn't make sense, there is going to be no miracle that is going to lead to a big scholarship for that university. You have to really work hard for a merit scholarship. Access. Do I have access to important things that I want in my life? Do I have a club there that I'm looking at? Is it a rural, what kind of living location, what kind of location is it all? Do I have access to a flight? Do I have access to my relatives there? So factors like that. If I'm struggling with something, they have a particular mentorship program? So what are the access points that are opening for me in that university? Third, of course, safety. A lot of people are asking questions like, what are your COVID protocols? We understand parents are concerned about safety, and that's why a lot of you choosing to stay back in India, thinking that you want your kids closer home. So these are the factors that you keep in mind while building your college list, in addition to the dream target safety, vertical. That's very important. Ideally, max 10 to 12 schools. It gets very, very overwhelming. Ucas can be looked at one school. So Ucas is one single application for 5 schools. You can treat it as one, and beyond that, go for 9 schools or 10 schools. That's more than enough. You can spread yourself to 2 countries, not beyond that. It becomes, too much of a mishmash. You're applying to Australia, there is a different application. You're applying to UK, you're applying to US. The child gets thoroughly confused. So please, research well, keep it maximum limited to 2 countries apart from India if you are looking at that, and that many schools. Research as per your own needs. There are websites. I've already shared them with Preeti ma'am. I'm sure you will get that. Ucas is a brilliant tool. Ucas will open up incidentally on 18th for research for students. They just sent out a thing yesterday. So please research your courses and everything on Ucas. College Board, the website where you register for your SAT, which also has a direct link via your CL4 portal, has a portal called Big Future. Please research as per your needs. These are something that you need to look at. There is no dedicated website for Singapore or anything, but you can always come back to us. That's why we want to wet your long list and say that you didn't miss anything, So that's something that you look at. What is your plan B? I want to go to Harvard. Brilliant. I must be hearing that from at least 50 kids every day. Every counselor must be hearing that from 50 kids. We can't, if you do permutations and combinations, the amount of applications that go to a Harvard or an Ivy League is beyond phenomenal, right? The amount of applications that go to Oxford and don't even make the threshold, you don't even have the required grades, it's phenomenal. So please have a plan B. Have a plan B in terms of universities. Have a plan B in terms of, okay, if this career didn't work out, everybody wanted to become a pilot. Everybody who's the child of a pilot. Suddenly now that's not a hot career. So what's your plan B, right? Please have a plan B for universities. Please have a plan B for your career. Demand and supply. Please ensure that that universities have enough demand, they are in demand and they have enough supply of students. So when you bring your long list, make sure that you're not only looking at the top colleges. We all want our students to go to the top colleges and we're supporting you for that. But safety is very important the only thing is that if you look at the acceptance rate on CL4, you'll understand how much a university is in demand. So keep that in mind when you are working on your long list for CL4. I've already overshot time a bit, so I want to quickly open the house for questions, and thank you for being such a patient audience today. I purposely kept it smaller, didn't include a lot of more examples, knowing that you've been through back-to-back presentations. You've been fantastic after school attending these presentations. Really, really appreciate it. So do you want to ask any questions now? Anybody has any questions?
May I request Mr. Ayush to step in? Mr.
I
Ayush,
just
take the floor. Yes.
yeah, just wanted to urge all the grade 12 students because it is right time to ask the question to ma'am. You people are in last year and you people are heading towards the college applications now. So it is really right time to ask whatever your queries are. Ma'am is here to help you out. And it is good to have the plans for application of for applying the for IIT and for CA, it is good to have these plans. But as ma'am has rightly said, that you should always have a plan B, because that is really important, because in this situation you never know what is going to come in front of you after 6 months, after 7 months, when you are going to give the paper. So it's really going to be a big impact if you always have a plan B in your mind, so that you don't panic at that moment and take any wrong decision. So grade 12, it is always important to be a part of this session and always be vocal about your thoughts and vocal about your queries. Okay. So please, the open house is there. Please ask the questions. Grade 12. Once
May I make a suggestion? Maybe they can send their questions to you, Ayush sir and Femeen ma'am right now if they're very hesitant. I would really appreciate if they put it on the chat box, but if they want to, you can maybe just quickly, they can WhatsApp them to you and you can ask the questions on their behalf.
Yes, definitely. Not a problem.
We'll just
Anyone?
give this another 1 or 2 minutes. Otherwise, Shikha, we are done for the day. Really, a lot of gratitude and thanks for putting this together and really creating that window of opportunity for our students. We would always be indebted to counselors that are that stellar and committed, because, you know, commitment is such a rare virtue these days. It's really like gold dust, and we really appreciate and stand by you at all times. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.